Hi friends, it's Becky, and today I'm going to be making a triple strand bracelet using the Softflex Rainy Day Blues kit. It is one of their monthly design kits that they issue. I already made a few things with that. I made two different pairs of earrings, I think. There were these ones that I showed y'all this week. There was this necklace that I made to celebrate the eclipse. And now I'm going to do a triple strand bracelet using that. And I'm also going to use some of this SilverSilk pearlesque chain that I'm in love with. This is waterfall color of the pearlesque chain. I'll put a link to where you can find that in the description below, by the way. And so we've got all of this, and I'm also going to make some dangly earrings because every day this month I am making a pair of earrings, and that's going to be today's earrings. And so let me go over the little bits and pieces and all of the things that we're going to go into this. As I said, I'm already going to be using this pearlesque chain from SilverSilk. I have some SilverSilk findings to make that possible. And then I've got some of the beads that came in the Softflex design kit. We've got these cage beads that have these blue crystals inside of them. And then these gorgeous check glass beads with the multicolored swirl that make the long bits. So that's going to be one strand of this. And then I'm making some links. I've basically made the links most of the way. I just haven't done the wrapping to put them all together yet. And I'll show you how I make those links. I left one out. But I'm using some of these rectangle beads, and then I've got these dark blue disco balls and some of these gray with the AB finish check glass beads that came in the bead mix for that design kit. One of the other things that came in that bead mix were these bracelets, and I'm using those and more of those fire polish beads that came in the bead mix. For the earrings, I'm also going to be using these sort of crystal beads that have their almost like rivelly kind of points, but they've got a little hole. Well, let me see if you guys can see the hole. There it is, right there at the top of that. So I'm going to be using those in the earrings. I've also got some 6mm jump rings for the earrings and some 26 gauge blue colored craft wire. I'm wrapping the bracelets with that craft wire to make little drops, and I'll demonstrate that with this one in just a minute. So we've got those. What else do we need in order to make this? I am going to be stringing one of the strands on some of this dark blue lapis beading wire, and I've got some of the gunmetal color 2x2 crimp tubes. I'm going to be using my magical crimper for that when I'm crimping it. I have two closed ring. These are 10mm closed rings. They're like jump rings, but they've been soldered closed, and a lobster clasp, and another 6mm jump ring for the bracelet. And then for tools, I'm using a round nose plier, a chain nose plier, my flush cutters. I will probably also be using my flat nose plier to close the SilverSilk components when we do that. And I think that should just about cover it. That's all the things that I've got. Oh, I did use some blue 22 gauge craft wire to make some ear wires ahead of time. So we'll do that with the earrings. All right. Okay, so let's focus on the earrings real quick. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to do the earrings first, and then we'll do the bracelet. So let's scooch down in here a little bit so that we are not distracted by everything else on here. And let's take a look at how we're going to be wrapping this bracelet. Now I've got about 7 inches of this 26 gauge wire. You can do this with 24 gauge too. And I'm going to find approximately the middle. It doesn't have to be the middle, but about halfway through there. We've got this bracelet, and the bracelets here have kind of a diagonally drilled hole. That's one of the reasons that I'm wrapping them, is because if I'm stringing them, they're going to hang a little bit funny, which probably would be fine if I was having them hang in something that was diagonal or something. But I'm not doing that. All right, so what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to pull up, and it's really, really easy to bend this 26 gauge wire, by the way. So I'm just pulling that up along the side of the long side first. And then we've got a short side where the hole is higher. I'm going to pull that around and just start wrapping around with my thumb around that bracelet. It can be a little bit tricky because this wants to move while you're doing it, so it helps to kind of pinch it between your fingers to hold the wire in your hand, and then just rotate this as it goes around. This can be messy, this part here, because we're gonna be coming back down and wrapping a little bit more after we get the rest of this wrapped. So we'll be able to cover up any mistakes that we make. And honestly, I kind of like the messy wrap look. But I'm just gonna smooth this out with my thumb as much as possible. So now I should have a little bit of a wrap over the top of this and a wire coming out there. Onto this wire, I'm going to put this rondelle that came from the bead mix. So it's sitting right there on top of there, and I'm just gonna, got this little bit that's poking out, I'm just gonna snip it off real quick just to keep it a little bit neater. You don't have to do that. If you don't have that bit sticking out, that's fine. So I'm just gonna pinch the top of this, bend this over, and that gives us a little bit of room for wrapping. And then I'm gonna hold it in my round nose pliers and just use my finger over the top, rotate this around. And while it's still on there, I can do this. I'm just gonna wrap around here a few times and then wrap diagonally around that crystal, and then go back down again with this to go over that same part that we wrapped before. And I can pull that off and hold it while I'm doing that. And that'll be fine. There we go. That gives us a pretty little wrapped bracelet that we can use in our earrings. I'm going to make one of these earrings with y'all, and then the other one I will make later. So what I'm going to do is open up one of these jump rings. Here we go. And you do that just by swinging it to the side. You don't want to pull it open. You want to just swing it like a twist. And I'm going to place one of these on the jump ring. And then I'm going to put, let's see, I did 2 gray and 1 blue. So I'm going to start with a gray one. I'm just going to put that on there like that. And then close this. So I've got that right there. And now I'm going to open another jump ring. And put on another one of these, I guess they're not really coin beads, these crystals. I'm going to grab that blue drop that I made. And then I'm going to put on that other one that I had so that they're linked together. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Open that up, put on my crystal, put on this drop, and then that same one that I just put on. Oh, you know what? That wasn't closed all the way. Let me fix that. You can see it wasn't closed all the way. There we go. That's much better. Whoop. Now I can pick this one up, put this on, and then hook that up there. Try it again. Right, one. Sometimes holding things with pliers is a little bit hard for me. They slip right out of my pliers. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's that my hands are like, oh, we don't need to hold on to things anymore. Or if it's just something that normally happens to folks. Now I've got my 4th jump ring here. I'm going to go ahead and put that on there. That's what I'm going to attach my ear wire to. Oh wait, let's attach this to the other ones first. And then we'll put on our 4th jump ring. There we go. This is a bit of a cluster, but it's meant to be. Just like this. And it's got some sparkle, and it's got these blue bits. Let me add that ear wire right here to this last jump ring up here. Close that up. There we go. It's like little raindrops. I love it. That is exactly what I wanted it to look like. All right, so now that we've got that finished, let's put together this bit because it's the one that will be hardest for us to resize. So we're going to do it first, and then every other strand is going to be sized according to this one. So what I did with these is I went ahead and just wrapped one end of these wrapped loops, and I left the other end open so that we can attach all of our links to each other. And I'm using just one of these rectangle beads on one link, and on the next link I'm using one of these gray rondelle beads, one of these blue discos, and then another of these gray rondelles. And I am doing this on 20 gauge craft wire. I've gone ahead and strung this on here onto the spool just because I like making my wrapped loops off of the spool instead of cutting off a certain length of wire and then doing it that way. So what I'm going to do is grab this part where I've already bent it, and the bending happened before y'all came along. You can bend it before mine does. I just didn't want my beads falling off. So now that that is bent, I'm going to wrap this one. I'm going to leave the other end unwrapped. Whoop. All of my links have one end that's wrapped and one end that's not. Now you could wrap all of your links all at once, and I actually left the wire on these. I don't know why I left it. Maybe because I was in a hurry or something, or it might be because maybe I'll want to adjust my wraps a little bit. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm feeling a little sassy tonight. So we'll see what happens. All right, so after I get that on there, I use about 3 fingers width from that last bead to judge how much to cut off from the spool. And then I grab right above that bead and bend the wire back. And I want all of my loops to be perpendicular to each other. So when I turn this, the loop disappears, becomes a line. When I look this way, it becomes a circle. This one, when I look at it, while this one's a circle, will turn into a line. And when it becomes a line on this end, it'll look like a circle on this side. All right. So now that I've got that bent, I can do the same thing as I did the other way, except instead of wrapping at this point, I'm just taking it right off so we can start putting these guys together. All right, so I've got my one end over here, And I think what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go ahead and attach it to our ring. This is a closed ring. It's not a jump ring. That way this end will be closed and attached to the, you know what I should have done? I should have left both ends open on that one. It'll be fine. It will be fine. Because you know what? I can just use a jump ring to attach it. That will be just fine, because once it's attached to the thing, I can hold on to it with the pliers and start wrapping around. Make sure that these are even and cut off my excess. And attach my next link. I've got some bit of wire that's poking out, so I'm just going to tuck this in with my pliers. It's entirely possible that I may need to bend the wire on some of these because it's going to be a bracelet. They may need to bend, but I'm going to wait until these are attached together to figure out which way I want to bend them. All right, so this next one, I'm going to take my open end and attach it to the closed end of this link. Slide that right on there. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I have all of my links attached. And there aren't that many to go through, so we're not going to stop it and start it and do some edits. I finished my other video. I don't know if you guys saw it, the one with the strawberry fields. I finished it last night and uploaded it, and I thought it was public. And then I went to look at it and I noticed that it was still private, so it hadn't actually been published. So I just published that one like just a couple of hours ago before I started filming this. So no, I'm not making two different videos in one day. It's just being published in one day. This is a totally different video made on a totally different day. There we go. Second one. Okay, and this is why I left a little bit of room so that I can wrap both sides. Get them a little more even on there. You don't want to wrap it too tight because then you might crack your beads. It's like a real fine line there. All right. Ellen would like to say hello. All right, I've got a few more to do here. Actually, I may just go ahead and get all of these wrapped and join you back here when I am done with that. All right, so I've got that length established, and I actually made a little change to my little design. I am doing one fewer link, one less link than I had originally intended, because if I had included another link of this size, it would just be a really, really loose bracelet, looser than I'm comfortable with. So I'm going to take those beads that I was going to use that with. I'm adding this crystal rondelle, and I'm going to pop all of those onto a head pin so that I have a dangle that I can attach to this end of my bracelet, because I like having a little dangle to hang on to when I am putting on a bracelet. So let's get this wrapped. And I think that this wire is probably going to do great with a simple loop. So I just bent that around, and I'm just going to cut off my excess wire here. There we go. And then bend this all the way around. It's very stiff wire, so it's not going to come apart. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to swing this open, attach it to the ring, and then close it. That way, when I go to put it on, I can hold on to it, and then I will have my lobster clasp on the other end to close that with. But first, let's get the other strands for this multi-strand bracelet attached. Going to need some wire. I'm just going to go ahead and cut enough wire for crimping, etc. And I'm going to crimp one end onto one of these loops. And I can just start stringing and add or subtract beads as I need to for it to be the right length. So I've grabbed my 2x2 crimp tubes. I'm going to put a crimp on the wire, put it through this ring, and then back through the crimp tube. There you go. And I don't want it too small of a loop, because then this wouldn't be able to slide along there very easily. So that is a good enough size. And then I use my magical crimper. It has a little divot in there that I can put that crimp into. You want to make sure it's centered before you squeeze it. And then once you squeeze it, it squishes down those corners. You can see it's the corners that are squished. And then if you rotate it and squish it from a different angle, and then rotate it and squish it from a different angle, and then rotate it and squish it from a different angle, every time you go around and do it from a different angle, those sharp edges that you saw the first time you squoze, they get compressed down into this round little bead of crimp. All right. Now I'm going to string these guys on here, and then we're going to check the length, see how it is, and see if I need to add anything to either end. And I'm just going through there like that. This is going to be a somewhat chunky bracelet. About right. I don't know. Okay. So I want this to be about or as close to the same length as I can get it. One more. is going to be, I think, perfect. Just right. Okay, so if that's on that side and that side, then we'll do that one on this side. And I can connect the SilverSilk on the other side. All right, where is my crimp tube? This one's a little bit trickier because I've got all these other things attached, both to the wire and to the hoop that I'm going to be attaching it to, but it shouldn't be too different. I want there to be a little bit of space between that last bead and my crimp tube. So I'm using my fingernail to just wiggle it a little bit so that when I put this on there, it can actually get centered on that. So then I did my little ravioli. And now I'm going to change my angle of attack. Go around. And each time you do that, just make sure it's centered. You can kind of feel it when all of those edges have been smooshed down. There's no resistance anymore when you're pressing down. That's what it feels like. All right. And now that last bit. Going to need a jump ring on each end, attaching it to the ring. Grab a couple more jump rings out. Got some more jump rings. Now, that's going to be about there, and that's going to be about there. So I'm going to need this to be about that long. All right. I'm just measuring it against the rest of everything, taking into account that it's going to need to go into this in order to be held. All right, now, pearlesque chain, if you haven't seen it before, it is one of the things that they make at SilverSilk and More, and it is a ball chain. There's a silver ball chain in here that has this like teal tinsel around it. This waterfall one has this like aqua colored, teal colored tinsel, and then this dark blue fine gauge wire. I think it's like 30 gauge or 32 gauge, something like that. It's a very fine gauge, so it's really flexible, really smooth. Doesn't feel rough against the skin to me, but I like using it because it just gives you like just a little bit of an extra oomph to the things that you're making. So because it's ball chain, there are these little balls in here, and that's what this is going to grab onto. It's the little SilverSilk finding that goes with it. They actually make them, or they have someone that makes them for them. And it has this lip on the inside, you can see there. And so when you put this in here and then squeeze it, that lip grabs onto that little space between the ball chains, and it holds this in there without needing to use any glue or anything like that. So I've got this as far as I can in there. going to start closing this. Oof. And one thing that I like to do is give a little bit of a tug to make sure that it's good and in there. Especially with the pearlesque chain, there's like a little bit of extra padding between the balls and the outside where the wire is. So sometimes you've got to put it in a little bit further, or maybe trim off the end a little bit so that it works better in there. Let me actually do that on that end. There we go. There's like little bits of wire that you'll end up with. Really easy way to clean these up is to just take like a bead scoop and just run it across your bead mat. It'll do it. I don't suggest using tape on these bead mats because it'll pull up the fuzz that makes the bead mat, but that'll clean up all of those little bits off your bead mat. Just a little tip. Anyway, but yeah, so you just get this guy in there as far as it can go, and then give it a squeeze. And I do find that these wide nose pliers are the best for it, because sometimes it can be a little bit slippery and it'll slip right out. I have some nylon jaw pliers that every time I try to do that, it's slippery sucker. It slips right out of the finding slips out of my pliers. So this is really good. You can get some Tool Magic to like coat it if you want to protect the finish on these. That's a lot of work though, and I don't really have time for that. Anyway, give it a little tug. It's in there really well. And is that long enough? I believe that is exactly going to be long enough, especially with these jump rings involved. So let's get these jump rings open and get our pearlesque chain attached. I think I might actually have the pearlesque chain attached in between these two strands and have it be kind of in the middle. Yeah, I think I like that idea a lot. Let's do that. There we go. So now I've got all three of those on that side. And now let's do this one on the other side. Making sure that I'm not flipping these around or attaching it incorrectly in the wrong place when I'm doing this. All right. So now I've got all three strands. Let's get my lobster clasp on there. And I think I'm going to do 2 jump rings for the lobster clasp. That feels right to me. I can always bring it back down to 1 if it's not working out for me, but I feel like that's going to give me a pretty easy to hook closed and not too big, but also not too tight bracelet. All right. It's funny, for the last 2 Mondays, I've made something with the Rainy Day Blues kit. Somebody place some new order. All right. You want to see it on? Let's put it on. Actually, let's have it go around this way. That's easier for me to do. There we go. That's why I like having a little dangle. There we go. I love these sparkly bits. Like we've got like the out and out sparkle, and then we've got our subtle sparkle. Yes, this is perfect. And then we also made an earring today with more sparkle. All right. I hope y'all have been having a great Monday and you continue to have a great week. I'll put a link to the Softflex kit section. I'm not sure if they still have any rainy day blues kits. If they don't have the rainy day blues kits, they may still have the bead strand that I pulled some of these beads from, or the bead mixes that some of these beads came from. If you wanted to go ahead and grab that, you might not get like some of the charms if you don't get the kit, but the bead mixes still have a lot of really great beads, a lot of fun beads to work with. So I'll put a link to that. I will put a link to this waterfall pearlesque chain over on the SilverSilk and More site. And I usually put a link to my bead mat that I like to work with, and a link to where I get my favorite organizers from. And if there's anything else that you all think that you would like to know where I got it from, let me know and I'll include it. But I hope y'all have a great day. Happy beading.